She texted, I told my parents we're engaged, surprise. Now you have to propose for real. We'd never discussed marriage. I replied, congratulations on your news. Then I sent her parents a message. I'm not sure what she told you, but we're actually breaking up. Hi, 29 am an accountant. I don't say that to bore you, but to explain how my brain works. I deal in black and white, assets and liabilities, debits and credits. I like columns that balance and numbers that make sense. Everything in my life has a place and a value, and I've worked incredibly hard to build a life that is stable, predictable, and secure. I own my home. I have a solid portfolio, and I drive a car that is paid off. I'm not flashy, but I'm secure. I thought I had a handle on the variables of my life, but when I looked down at my phone at 2:14 p.m. on a regular Tuesday, I realized I had been miscalculating a massive liability for 2 years. The text was from my girlfriend. We've been together for 2 years, living together for 1. It read, I told my parents we're engaged, surprise. Now you have to propose for real. They're so happy. Don't ruin this for me. Love you. Attached to the text was a photo. It was her hand, manicured perfectly, sporting a ring. And not just any ring. It was a high-quality cubic zirconia replica of a specific designer ring we had looked at in a magazine about 6 months ago. I remember that moment vividly because I looked at the price tag, looked at her and said, that's a nice design, in the most non-committal, indifferent tone I could muster. I hadn't bought that ring. I hadn't proposed. We hadn't even discussed marriage in a serious capacity for months. In fact, the last time the topic came up was 3 weeks ago. She had been pushing for a timeline, asking when we were going to take the next step. I sat her down and told her the truth. I wasn't ready. We had significant issues to work through. She was terrible with money, constantly overdrawing her personal account, hiding shopping bags in the trunk of her car, and treating credit limits like suggestions. On top of that, our communication was awful. She shut down whenever I tried to talk about budgets or future planning. I told her clearly, I cannot marry someone I can't plan a future with. She had cried, sulked for 3 days, and then seemingly let it go. Apparently, she didn't let it go. She plotted. The audacity of the text message wasn't just a lie. It was a command. Now you have proposed. It was a hostage situation disguised as a romantic gesture. She knew I was conflict avoidant. She knew I prided myself on being a good guy who treated people with respect. She was banking on the fact that I wouldn't humiliate her in front of her parents, that I would just roll over, smile for photos, and sign away the rest of my life to avoid an awkward conversation. She severely miscalculated the valuation of my self-respect. I didn't reply immediately. I put the phone down on my desk and took a deep breath. My heart wasn't racing. I didn't feel sad. I felt a cold, hard clarity, like a ledger finally balancing out after days of searching for a missing penny. I opened my banking app on my phone. Nothing unusual in my main checking. Then I checked the credit card I had foolishly added her to as an authorized user about 6 months ago. It was for emergencies only, like a flat tire or a medical copay. My eyes widened. In the last 48 hours, the balance had shot up by $4,500. I clicked on the transaction history. A deposit for a local event venue. A massive charge at a florist. A catering deposit. A dress shop. She hadn't just lied to her parents today. She had been planning the surprise for weeks, and she was funding her own trap using my credit line. I switched to my home security app. I have cameras in the living room and the driveway. The live feed showed her car in the driveway, and her parents' beat-up sedan parked right behind it. Inside, my girlfriend was pacing the living room, phone to her ear, looking triumphant. Her mother was sitting on my leather sofa, shoes on, holding a glass of what looked like my expensive scotch. Her father was walking around the room, touching my things, inspecting the crown molding like he was a building inspector. This wasn't just a lie. It was an invasion. I typed a reply to her. Congratulations on your news. I hit send. Then I pulled up the contact for her mother. Her parents have always treated me with a weird mix of disdain and hunger. They looked down on me because I didn't come from old money like they claimed to, though they seemed to have very little money of their own, but they tolerated me because I was a steady paycheck. They made constant digs about my lack of initiative or how I was too safe. I composed a text to her mother and father in a group chat. I'm not sure what she told you or what game is being played, but I want to be clear. We are not engaged. I did not propose. In light of this deception and the theft of my funds, we are actually breaking up. Please, do not get comfortable in my house. Sent. The fallout was instantaneous. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. First, a confused text from her dad. What is this? Is this a joke? Then a string of frantic calls from my girlfriend. I silenced the phone. Then, the inevitable call from her mother. I let it go to voicemail. She called again, and again. Finally, I answered, putting it on speaker so I could record on my iPad. I live in a one-party consent state. I knew instinctively that I was going to need evidence. As an accountant, I know that if it isn't documented, it didn't happen. How dare you? Her mother didn't even say hello. She just screamed into the receiver. My daughter is sobbing. She told everyone. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is for us? For U.S.? I imagine it is embarrassing, I said, keeping my voice flat and professional. Lying usually leads to embarrassment. It was a white lie, she shrieked. She knew you were dragging your feet. She took initiative. A real man would appreciate a woman who knows what she wants. You should be grateful a woman of her caliber wants to marry you. You are going to fix this. You're going to come home right now, apologize, and put a ring on her finger before the dinner party tonight. Dinner party? I asked. We invited the aunt and uncle. We're celebrating. Do not humiliate this family, or you will regret it. I'm not coming to any dinner party. The engagement isn't real, and she needs to be out of my house. She lives there. The mother's voice dropped an octave, turning into a growl. You can't just kick her out. We'll sue you for everything you have. We know our rights. The line went dead. The threat was vague, but the entitlement was specific. They truly believed they could bully me into a marriage license. I left work early, but I didn't go home. Going home alone would be a mistake. It would be my word against three of them. And in a domestic dispute, the guy usually loses that battle in the court of public opinion. I drove to the bank first. I had the teller print out a certified transaction history of the credit card showing the unauthorized charges. Then I had them remove her as an authorized user and freeze the card. Next, I went to the nearest police precinct. I asked to speak to the desk sergeant about a civil standby. I explained that I was breaking up with a living girlfriend who had fraudulently used my credit cards, and I needed to retrieve my personal documents, passport, birth certificate, deed, and ensure she didn't destroy my property while I asked her to leave. The officer explained the law to me. Because she had established residency, she'd been there a year, I couldn't legally kick her out that night without a formal eviction order unless there was violence or protective order. However, he agreed to send a patrol car to meet me there to keep the peace while I secure my belongings and asked her to leave voluntarily. I pulled into my driveway at 5:30 p.m. The patrol car pulled in right behind me. I walked to the front door, the officer staying a few steps back on the porch, his hand resting near his belt, not aggressive, just present. I unlocked the door and stepped in. The scene was surreal. Her parents were still there. Her dad had his feet up on my coffee table. My girlfriend was wearing a white cocktail dress, not a wedding dress, but bridal enough to make the point. They looked up, expecting a groveling boyfriend. When they saw the uniform behind me, the air left the room. Finally, her mom barked, standing up. She hadn't fully registered the cop yet. Get on your knees and apologize to her. Get out, I said. My girlfriend looked up, her mascara running, her face twisted in a mix of rage and panic. You brought the police? To our engagement. There is no engagement, I said, walking past her to the safe in my office. And I know you spent $4,000 on my visa for a party I didn't agree to. That's credit card fraud. The word fraud hung in the air like a bad smell. Her dad stood up, his face reddening. Now, son, let's not bring the law into this. It's just money. We can work it out once you're married. It's all community property then anyway, right? That was a slip. Community property. I froze. A week prior, I had borrowed my girlfriend's laptop because mine was updating. I had seen a tab open. Common law marriage requirements in my state. We don't have common law marriage here, but she clearly thought we did or was hoping to find a loophole. Her dad's comment confirmed they'd been discussing my assets as if they were already theirs. "Officer," I said, turning back to the door, "these two people do not live here. I want them trespassed. They are not welcome." The officer stepped into the entryway. "Folks, if the homeowner wants you to leave, you have to leave. You don't have residency here." "He promised to marry her," the mom yelled, pointing a manicured finger at me. "This is breach of contract. He wasted her prime years." "There is no contract," I said. "There's only a maxed-out credit card and a lie." It took 20 minutes to get the parents out. They left screaming obscenities, vowing to destroy my reputation at church, at my job, in the town square. They called me every name in the book: cheap, cruel, heartless. My girlfriend, however, didn't leave. She sat on the couch, arms crossed. A smug smile returned to her face once her parents were gone, and the officer had to leave. The officer apologized to me, saying, "Since she lives here, you have to go to the courts to get her out. Unless you feel unsafe, I can't make her leave." Once the door clicked shut, the house went quiet. "You can't make me leave," she said softly, picking at a loose thread on the sofa. I checked. I have tenant rights. I'm not going anywhere. This is my home, too. "You stole from me," I said, standing in the kitchen, keeping the island between us. "You tried to trap me." "I tried to help you," she shouted, standing up and grabbing a vase from the counter. A heavy crystal one that had belonged to my late grandmother. "You're so afraid of life. I was giving you a push." "Put the vase down." She looked at me, her eyes wild. "You want me to leave? Fine. Pay me. I want $50,000 for the time I wasted on you. You pay me and I go. If you don't..." She deliberately opened her hand. The vase hit the hardwood floor and shattered into 1,000 pieces. "Oops," she said, her voice dripping with venom. "Better get used to that. Until you put a ring on this finger, I'm going to make your life a living hell in your own house. And if you try to file for eviction..." She stepped closer, lowering her voice to a whisper. "I'll tell everyone you hit me. I'll bruise myself up. I'll call the cops. Who are they going to believe? The crying fiancé or the cold, unfeeling accountant?" I stared at her. I didn't yell. I didn't rage. I looked at the shards of my grandmother's vase on the floor. "Is that your plan?" I asked. "It's a promise," she hissed. Then she turned and walked into the guest bedroom, slamming the door. She thought she had checkmated me. She thought I was cornered. But she forgot one thing. I had walked in with my phone in my shirt pocket, camera lens facing out, recording video. And when that filled up, I had switched to the voice recorder app on my Apple Watch. I had the threat on tape. "I'll tell everyone you hit me." I didn't stay there that night. I packed a bag, grabbed my documents, took clear photos of the broken vase, and left. I checked into a hotel down the street. I didn't sleep. I plotted. She wanted a war involving the law and social pressure? Fine, but she was playing checkers, and I was about to play 4D chess with a bulldozer. The next morning, I called out of work and met with the most aggressive family law attorney in the city. I played him the recording of her mother threatening me. I showed him the credit card statements. And then I played him the recording from the kitchen. My lawyer, a guy who looked like he ate nails for breakfast, actually smiled. "That," he said, pointing to phone, "is extortion. And in a domestic setting, threatening to file a false police report to coerce you into housing or marriage is considered a form of domestic abuse. We can get an ex parte protective order today." But I wasn't done. "Her parents," I said. "I want to know why. Why the rush? Why force an engagement now?" My lawyer ran a background check and asset search on her parents. It took a few hours. The results were the smoking gun. Her parents were broke. Not just cash poor, they were drowning. They had a mountain of credit card debt, and more importantly, their house was in active foreclosure. The auction date was set for 3 weeks from now. The pieces clicked into place. The engagement, the rush, the community property comment. They weren't just pushing for a wedding. They were pushing for a lifeboat. The plan was obvious. get us married, or at least engage in cohabitating firmly, so the parents could downsize, which meant moving into my 4-bedroom house before the bank took theirs. My girlfriend wasn't just trapping me for herself. She was securing housing for her entire toxic lineage. They wanted my home. They wanted the equity I had built working 60-hour weeks. I felt a cold rage settle in my chest. They wanted to steal my life. Burn them, I told the lawyer. Here is how the revenge unfolded. It was a 3-act play of absolute destruction. Act 1, the eviction. We went to the courthouse. The judge listened to the recording. When he heard, "I'll tell everyone you hit me," his face went stone cold. He granted the emergency protective order immediately. It came with a kick-out order, meaning she had to vacate the residence immediately, regardless of tenant rights, because she posed a threat to me. I didn't serve it myself. I hired a private process server, and I requested a sheriff's deputy escort to enforce the order. They arrived at the house at 6 p.m. I wasn't there. I watched from the security cameras, on my phone from the hotel room. My girlfriend opened the door, likely expecting me to come crawling back with flowers. Instead, she was handed a court order giving her 15 minutes to grab essential items and vacate the premises. The audio on the camera picked up her shrieking. "This is illegal. I live here. You can't do this. You have a protective order against you for extortion and domestic harassment, ma'am," the deputy said. His voice bore but firm. "Grab your bag. You can arrange for a police escort to get the rest of your things later. If you are not out in 15 minutes, you will be arrested." She called her parents. They showed up in record time, screaming at the deputies from the sidewalk. That was a mistake. The deputy told them to back off or be arrested for interfering with a court order. They watched helplessly as their daughter was escorted off the property with one suitcase, sobbing into her phone about how abusive I was. She tried to play the victim card right there on the lawn, wailing to the neighbors. But the neighbors had seen the police car. They saw the calm deputy. They saw the chaotic, screaming family. The optics were not in her favor. Act 2, the financial guillotine. My lawyer filed a police report for the credit card fraud. $4,500 isn't a small amount. It's a felony in my state. Because she had used the card after I had explicitly texted that we were breaking up and that I didn't consent to the charges, the authorized user defense was non-existent. We contacted the vendors she had paid. We showed them the police report for fraud, the venue, the caterer, the florist. They all voided the contracts immediately to avoid liability. The money was returned to my card. The engagement party she had planned for that weekend? Canceled. But here's the kicker. I didn't tell her it was canceled. I let her believe the party was still happening. Act 3, the public humiliation. This was the final blow. She had already blasted our engagement all over social media. She had created a Facebook event for the engagement celebration at a local park pavilion, which she had booked with my money. After getting kicked out of my house, she doubled down. She posted a long, tearful video alleging that I was having a mental breakdown and was scared of commitment, but that love would prevail and the party was still on. She was trying to social pressure me into showing up and making it right. I decided to RSVP. I didn't show up to the park. Instead, at the exact time the party was supposed to start, I posted a single status update on my own Facebook. I tagged her parents, and the aunt and uncle she was so worried about. I attached the audio file of her blackmail threat, just that one snippet. "If you try to file for eviction, I'll tell everyone you hit me." I attached a screenshot of the public foreclosure notice of her parents' house, and I wrote, "There's no engagement. There is no wedding. I am not a retirement plan for a family that lost their home due to negligence and tried to trap me into housing them. Girlfriend's name has been removed from my home by a sheriff's deputy due to criminal extortion. Proceed with caution." The nuclear blast was visible from space. Her phone must have melted. Mutual friends who had been blowing me up, calling me a jerk, suddenly went silent. The comments section turned into a war zone. Her cousins or friends, people from our college, everyone heard her voice threatening to ruin me with a lie. The veil of the sweet, innocent girl was ripped away. The engagement party at the park happened, but I wasn't there. According to a friend who drove by to check, It was just her parents, and a few confused relatives standing around a picnic table, screaming at each other. The vendors hadn't shown up because the contracts were voided. There was no food, no flowers, just a family imploding in public. The aftermath. It's been 3 months since that day. The protective order was made permanent for 2 years. She tried to fight in court, but the judge listened to full recording and looked at the photos of the shattered vase. He wasn't impressed. She has a criminal record now for credit card fraud. We settled. She pled down to a misdemeanor to avoid jail time, but she has to pay full restitution and is on probation. A theft charge on her record means her career prospects are significantly limited. Her parents lost their house. The foreclosure went through. Without my spare wing to move into, they had no backup plan. They are currently living in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment. My ex is living with them on their couch. I imagine it a very tight, very loud, very miserable existence. I didn't escape totally unscathed. I lost some friends who thought I was too harsh and should have just broken up with her quietly. They said airing the dirty laundry and posting the foreclosure notice was cruel. Maybe it was. But when someone threatens to label you a domestic abuser to steal your house, cruel becomes a survival strategy. I protected my future. I sat on my porch this morning, drinking coffee. The house was quiet. No drama. No debt. No in-laws plotting to turn my office into a sewing room. I looked at the spot on the floor where the vase had shattered. I had replaced it with a large cactus. It's prickly, resilient, and impossible to manipulate. I learned a valuable lesson. Love isn't just a feeling. It's a contract of mutual respect. And when the other party breaches that contract with fraud and malice, you don't renegotiate. You terminate the deal, you seize the assets, and you close the file. Sometimes the best response is surprise. We're engaged is surprise. You're evicted. If you enjoyed watching a gold digger get buried under the weight of her own audacity, hit that subscribe button. It costs less than a fake engagement ring and lasts longer than her tenure in my house.